Good afternoon and welcome today here at Nyenrode Business University for our fourth Nyenrode Inspiration Talk. The last weeks we've been talking about leadership and society, leadership and organization. Last week about leading others and leading teams. And today it will be about personal leadership. The challenges you and everyone around us are facing every day in your business life and in your personal life. We'll be listening to a very special guest today. Vujicic will share his story for the first 45 minutes, and after that there'll be a Q&A hosted by Professor Bas Kodden, Professor Leadership and Management Development at Nyenrode Business University. In these days, the Netherlands are opening up again. Organizations are opening up again. And we, in these challenging times, are facing every day with new situations, new challenges, new surprises. Some surprises are really great and nice to receive, and some surprises are not the things that you expected and might provide you with new challenges. Today you can get several answers how to approach, how to deal with these. So for you, if you have any questions to Nick, please put them in the chat, ask them, and we'll make sure that they'll be provided and entered into the Q&A. So you, in the end, will have at least one insight that you can apply tomorrow to make the world a better place. Today, Vujicic, a man with no arms, no legs, and no limits. He has written a New York Times bestseller, and in the United States he's been on many television channels. And we are very happy that he'll be with us to share his insight today with you. And besides that, he's also a very special person, sharing his personal story. Please, your attention for Vujicic.
Hello to each and every one of you students. Thank you so much for the introduction, and it's just such a pleasure and an honor to live stream to you right now as someone who loves you, someone who believes in you, and I don't know who you are, I don't know your name, but what I've learned from being born without limbs is that, first of all, that we all have value as a human being and that we all can reach our very full potential. As you can imagine, I've been accustomed to living a life full of challenges and being faced with many, many different situations and unique situations compared to those around me, including my brother and my sister who have arms and legs, but I don't. And in that loneliness, is sometimes the spot where we get stuck in the yuck. And with so many challenges in our lives, you may have arms and legs, but you're struggling with other disabilities. And in fact, I would rather have a disability physically than the disability of my self-esteem or the disability of me not being able to dream big and actually put dreams into action. Some of us feel disabled right now. You have never faced a year like this, just like the entire world has not faced something like this. As we all are in the same position, more or less, as things are opening back up in some places of the world, some places of the world closing back up, some people having fears of the future in many aspects. And in this instability, I think in this pause of reflection, trying to figure out, wait a second, who am I? Why am I here? Is this it? Is this what the world can really give, or can we as a world better ourselves and make the world a better place and understand that united we are stronger? With that preface, I just wanted to say again, thank you for having me here at your university. Thank you, Bus. Thank you, Chris, everyone at the university. I myself have a passion for business. My first job was 6 years old, vacuuming the floor at my home for $2 a week. That's right, you heard me. My parents said, Nick, we're not going to give you money. There is no Christmas tree. There is no Christmas present for you. The only gift we give you is our love and mentorship and one birthday present annually, obviously. And I thought that was quite harsh sometimes, comparing what I felt was pretty unfair compared to what I felt my friends could get and get away with. My friends were getting everything they wanted when they wanted it and how they wanted it. And I must have thought, wow, their parents must be rich, or my parents are just strict. And there were times in my life where just on that alone, forget about the fact that I had no arms, no legs, forget about the fact that I was the only one in school with no arms, no legs. I felt very differently treated compared to what I thought all my friends were being treated, as to the discipline, as to us understanding that now as parents, maybe you understand it better when you one day become a parent. Like I have now 4 children, I now realize that if you give your child everything they want, when they want it, how they want it, they will never have the wonderful ingredients of the secret source of happiness. The happiness comes from the discipline of the attitude of gratitude, being thankful for what you have. Now, if I give my child everything they want, when they want it, how they want it, number one, will they ever be thankful for what they have? No, because they get what they want and then 2 weeks later they want something else. Same thing to understand in the attitude of gratitude. You can have a lot and you can have a little, but it's the choice of being thankful for what you had, for what you have. And this entire understanding of self-efficacy was really the epiphany as a very young boy. Let me share with you what I mean. You see, if my parents gave me everything I wanted, when I wanted it, how I wanted it, would that really prepare me for the world? Does the world give you everything you want, when you want it, how you want it? No. So what does that mean? If you then face from that situation, being spoiled, you have this understanding of pride, entitlement, that you think the world owes you something, that my parents owed me something. And what I realized was vacuuming the floor for $2 a week taught me self-efficacy, helped me understand that I need to do what I can do. Me vacuuming the floor actually gave me this undergirding foundation of dignity. Your dignity is established when you know who you are as a human being. And this is only a portion of it, but hear me out for a second. If I wanted a $15 toy from the shops or the mall, I knew that it would take me roughly 8 weeks before I had $16 if I vacuumed every week to then purchase what I wanted. What was really interesting is not only the satisfaction of buying something that I earned, which is very important, but it also taught me goal setting. It taught me patience. It taught me the even decision process that I had to have as a 6-year-old to say, wait a second, I've just put aside 8 weeks of my life, my hard work. It's hard work vacuuming with no arms and legs. You try it one day. And I wasn't a big boy. I was 6 years old, okay? Imagine a 6-year-old with no arms and no legs. This vacuum cleaner was, I don't know, nearly, 2 meters long, and I'm holding it here, and I'm doing this, and I'm a perfectionist. What we must understand is in self-efficacy, you need to have that dignity. You need to understand who you are as a person is not determined on what you think you deserve, but actually what you do that you know you can do. Understanding that for you and yourself, you can complain about what you don't have, or you can be thankful for what you do have and do your best. And that taught me understanding of discipline, responsibility, and also making the world a better place. I'm speaking to you from apparently, as the world knows us, as the land of the free and the land of opportunity, America. But my parents in the 1960s, the government came under the communism regime of former Yugoslavia. My parents had a knock at their door. The government took their home, took their animals, farm, shot all the animals dead. They took over the farm and kicked them out of the house. My parents saw both their fathers, my grandfathers, were in prison because they were pacifists. And it was law to go and pick up arms and go into military. But because of their belief system, they were in jail. They were abused. They were tortured. Then they were ordered to go pick up wounded soldiers on the field. They both got shot. They both survived. They got their family. They fled communism Yugoslavia. My mom was 6. My dad was 15. They met in Australia. They were in refugee camps. And we would hear stories of how they would go to bed hungry. We would hear stories of them coming to Australia with nothing. We would hear stories of them getting beaten at school by the Australians because they were Europeans. I heard of these things, and you know what they always told us before a meal? Be thankful for this meal. Be thankful and mindful of those who don't have food. And when I grew up, I was understanding that I had no arms, no legs. But I could never forget how my place in this world would be to make the world a better place. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. I had no idea. I was first in survival mode. How do you go from survival mode to thriving mode? Well, I want to share with you the depths of my despair in how I did survive. That will be the key tools for you to reframe your challenges emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, because there are 6 areas of life that start with F. You have faith, family, friends, okay, finance, fitness, and fun. I'll repeat it. Faith, family, friends, finance, fitness, and fun. When you look at the dashboard of your car and you see the temperature gauge, the oil pressure, the speed, the RPM, the fuel gauge, all these things, and an engine check light, when you go through these things on driving a car in your ride of life, you must have healthy RPMs, healthy speeds, healthy I'm not going to open it up, but you must understand that for me in my life, I've realized I am more than a physical being. And that was my first challenge. Because when we look at what we look at, we're very scientific. It's logic. You see, you know that the stove could burn you, So then you understand not to touch it, which means then wisdom is don't touch it, don't go near it. And then the discernment to understand that when you go there, though it's hot and it can burn you, you know how to use it as well, and when and how best to use it. To understand that you have knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and discernment. It's your gut feeling. It's your instincts. Based on the knowledge, based on the wisdom and understanding, you then therein live your life as a discerning human being. You can't separate who you are. You are a body, a mind, a soul, and a spirit. So as I was told, Nick, you're beautiful, we love you. My parents gave me a home of love. But when you reverse back to when I was first born, at the time, my father was 27 years old. At the time, my mother was 25 years old. They were married for 5 years. My dad had 3 different jobs, working 65 hours a week. My mom was a full-time nurse, working 40 hours a week. She had a disabled first son after me, sibling after me, my sister. And with this, the life that they had was very busy. I was their firstborn son, and they planned on waiting 5 years to be married before they had children. My parents today tell me, well, they told me my dad unfortunately died several years ago. But when we had discussions together, they said, Nick, having those 5 years of friendship in a marriage was everything. If we didn't have those 5 years of friendship and you came into our life, we would have divorced. You see, 80% of families divorce within 24 months of having a child with a disability or a family member being affected with a disability. And so that friendship and foundation of self-efficacy that my parents had, the foundation of friendship that my parents had, and the community of family around them superseded their financial health and superseded anything else. It was the health of the spirit and the body and the heart and the mind to know that their parents told my parents, if you're going to give him up for adoption, we'll adopt him. And so my parents knew that they were given me not as a mistake, not as a incomplete human being, but as a gift. And in our belief system, we must understand that all life has value. So my parents had 3 ultrasounds on my mother's womb, and they were so excited every time, even though my mom was a nurse, they didn't check that I had arms and legs. So when I was born, we hear the story many times now over the years that it was a great shock. My doctor, he paused. He held me low enough that my mom couldn't see me. My dad could see my shoulder, but he saw no arm. The nurses began weeping, and they took me out of the room very quickly without my mom seeing me. My mom asked, what is wrong? The doctor said phocomelia. My mom, being in the medical world, knew exactly what that was. It wasn't thalidomide. She didn't take morning sickness pills. She didn't touch alcohol. She didn't touch caffeine. She had a premonition that something would go wrong in the first place. So she was very careful. You know what the doctor said? We are so sorry that we did not give you the option to abort. He is never going to walk. He's never going to go to school. He's never going to have a quality of life. He's going to be fully dependent on you. Now, in the reasoning of logic, which is something that is a gift, that we can have knowledge and understanding, we understand that there are parameters when you have a child with no arms, no legs. But let's first go to the heart, shall we? When you go through a challenge that you were not expecting, like 2020, do you know what the first thing is? The emotion of shock. You are a human. For as long as you are human, you feel things. And when you feel emotions, despite maybe the non-emotional relationship you have maybe with your father who is stern, who maybe you've never had a hug from, who just tells you to clean your room, get off technology, and do your best in school and become a millionaire as best as you can, then get married and have children of your own and then get out of my house. We understand that some of us are able to process emotions differently. We all are different in how we live from day to day because of many factors: how we were raised, where we were raised, our socioeconomic culture, our spiritual belief system, the system that we are taught at school, the system that we are taught at home. It all affects who we were as a child. So we learn things as a child based on what we are told. We are then based as a teenager, understanding based on what we experience. And then after teenage years, we learn based on what we've done. It is the arc of life. Welcome to life. Wherein there's a shift that happens from childhood to teenage years to adolescent years, that you are more prone to learning things not from what your family teaches you, but what media tells you, what your culture tells you, what your school tells you, and what your friends tell you. After you graduate from here and you become a married spouse or not, you as an adult learn then based on what you've done, what you failed in, what you learned, what you feel, and what you discover. Does that make sense? But in all of these areas, this is the process of things that I'm going to tell you how I changed my life from a life without limits into a life without limits. Number one was the attitude of gratitude. Number two was self-efficacy. Number three is processing your emotions. When you go through something that you didn't see coming, the first emotion that you go through is shock. The second emotion you go through is denial. This can't be happening. The third layer of emotions is why. Why me? How did this happen? Why is this happening to the world? Number four, who is to blame? Did I do something wrong? Who did something wrong? What is really going on? And we go through that. The next stage is grief. You grieve being able to be socially engaged like you know you've had all your life. You grieve, about you trying to have a dream and question, will my dream now still be reached? And then it goes from grief to fear. And now fear is healthy if it's the healthy fear. You see, there's two types of fear. You have the fear where the acronym is FEAR, false evidence appearing real. It is called irrational fear. And based on what you know, based on what you see, based on what you feel, and based on what you're told, you therein conclude a trajectory of your future. It's called irrational, wherein I had to learn as an 8-year-old, based on what I know, I have no arms and no legs. I'm the only one with no arms and no legs. No doctor in the world can tell me why. Based on what I feel, I'm bullied. I'm always going to be bullied. I'm a burden to my parents. I'm alone. I'm always going to be alone. That's what I feel. What do I know? I know that I'm never going to get married. I know I'm never going to be happy. I know I should just disappear. And when we have that fear that overrides our cognitive processes, it's when you act a certain way, doing things, saying things, thinking things on this train called irrational fear. which led me to not only a 5-year depression with an attempted suicide at age 10, but it was very scary and counterproductive, and I dug my own grave. And we sometimes do that. Based on what you know, based on what you feel, based on what you see, it's easy to then go to pornography for the escape, or a drug, or something to escape the feelings of what you have. Pornography is one of the scariest addictions that you could ever have. If you look at the science behind it, how it rewires your brain, please research that. If you look at drugs, you are intelligent enough not to just say no to drugs because somebody told you no, but to abstain of things and anything that is unhealthy, that gives you the emotional, psychological escape. What we must understand is we are human beings, and for as long as we feel what we feel, you can escape it, but you can't escape it. It's a temporary escape, whatever that escape looks like for you. If it's healthy, it's healthy. If it's unhealthy, it's unhealthy. And it's just a matter of time before the fruit of an unhealthy tree shows unhealthy fruit. So what do you do with these emotions? So it's understanding this very, very important point. So number 1, attitude of gratitude. Number 2 is self-efficacy. Number 3 is processing your emotions. So how do you do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. For me, I didn't really tell people how I felt. I actually didn't tell anybody till age 21 that I already had attempted suicide. One of the things that woke me up from my depression was a bad day. I had a bad day one day. I was playing soccer, my favorite sport in the world. Yes, I'm watching Euro Cup. I saw Spain's victory. I want you to know I love football, the real football, right? Your team, I'm a big fan of. I believe you guys are one of the best in the world. In fact, good luck. But I'll tell you, in our life, sometimes we have bad days to wake up. And one day I was playing football, hurt my little foot. So at the bottom left of my torso, I have no arms and legs, but I have a little foot. It's about 15 centimeters long with 2 toes that enable me to type 53 words a minute on a normal computer, walk around, swim, golf, fish, skydive, scuba dive. I've done it all. And it's been an incredible ride. I've been in 74 countries. I did a double major in accounting and financial planning. I was trading on the stock market, options trader by age 17, and then bought my first real estate investment home at age 19. And I've now been a speaker around the world in front of 9.5 million people face to face, and 1 billion people on Chinese TV, and 1 billion people outside of China. And I am a youth advisor to 3 current national governments. 3 countries had me speak to all their students at once. They stopped their schools to have Nick Vujicic speak to all of them about self-efficacy, never giving up, not bullying yourself, and not bullying other people. We have a social emotional learning curriculum that we're bringing into national school systems. So with all of this said, I had no idea that that was for my future. I had no idea that I'd get married. I thought even if I got married, I can't even hold my wife's hand. Who's going to want to marry me? Who's going to want me to be the father of their children when I can't even pick up my children when they're crying? What kind of a husband can I be? What kind of a father can I be? If I don't get a job, I can't even provide. I think I'm just going to give up. That was where I was at. And I was on that irrational fear train. However, when you process your emotions, it has to first have a foundation of attitude, of gratitude. So what happened? I was playing soccer, I hurt my little foot, and I was then in bed for 3 weeks straight. I was not only limbless, but bedridden. And it was the first time I felt disabled. And I thought to myself, wow, I have a choice. I'm looking at you right now and I'm telling you, as a limbless man who's an entrepreneur, who has given away $1.7 million to the needy through our foundation, who has met 21 presidents, I'm telling you right now, in your life, you have a choice. And maybe you can't choose what happened to you, and maybe you can't choose how you feel, but you can still choose to have an attitude of gratitude for the things you do have and the things that you can still be thankful for. And that's what I realized. I had a choice either to be angry for having no limbs or being thankful for what I do have. And so that's how I started turning my life around, taking one day at a time. The only reason why I didn't fill up my lungs all the way with water when I tried to drown myself was the thought of seeing my mother and my dad crying at my grave. There's only one thing worse than having a limbless son. It's a limbless son who decides to kill himself. Don't give up. And so how to get off that irrational train is so important. And it was being thankful. It was having dignity. My dad said, Nick, you have no arms and no legs, so you're probably never going to get a job. So start a business. You're smart. You are good at mathematics. You are good at chess. You can compete and become number one. And he said, Nick, you need to become a millionaire because me and mom can't help you as much. You need to start businesses and your employees will be your hands and feet. And so I made my goal to make my first million by age 25. And I read that when I read a book called Money Secrets of the Rich by John Burley here in America. And it changed my life on a financial level. But what I first needed was a heart change. So what did I do? I started actually talking to friends. I shared what I was feeling. I shared what I was going through, and they were listening. And then they would share their story about how their parents are going through a divorce. And I thought to myself, wow, I would rather have no arms and no legs than see my mom and dad split. And so it was this understanding that we all had broken pieces. It was this understanding that we had each other. It was this understanding that we don't know how each other feel, but we're here for one another. And so in that understanding of, number one, I'm not the only one in hell. I'm not the only one crippled with fear and depression. And just being heard and speaking to somebody helps process our emotion. I am the motivational speaker that has been the highest paid in history under age 40. I am thankful to tell you that only because, as I've spoken around the world, I tell people that also to process your emotion is healthy to go to a psychologist who has the same belief system as you to also process your emotions. Because sometimes just telling your friends is not enough. What I did in 2020 when the crap hit the fan, I chose 2 friends of mine and I would call them on alternating weeks just to talk to them. And as I talked to them, they heard me and they talked to me and I heard them. We were there for one another. We were all on ships that were sinking financially. We were all very tempted to stay on that fear train. I got hijacked by fear. I went through anxiety last year. I went through depression last year. I went through anger last year. I went through a lot last year. A lot. There are some people who also don't like me, who want me dead. So I found a grenade at my house. I had a spying drone over my house. A major bank kicked me out. I lost $750,000 cash within 12 months. I had a lawsuit threat against me. Then 2020 hit. And it was terrible. And so when you go through life and you're in your mid 30s to late 30s and you got 4 kids and a wife and you have to also move state, it's unbelievably challenging sometimes. And the reason why you can have a calm head is because you can say to yourself, I've seen this movie before. Now, not that 2020 was anything that I could ever compare with another year, but you got to understand, it's the movie of the hijacking of the emotions. I was so angry one day, I used my shoulder and I punched a hole through the wall. And I share that with you to let you know I'm like you. And I had to go through counseling. And so I went through 10 hours of counseling. For the first time, I did consecutive serial counseling sessions with people, because I'm a Christian, we all have a different religion. But for me and my belief system, I needed a Christian counselor. And in that, I found out that I had a lot of buried emotions that now have come up. And 6 hours of it was 20 years, in the last 20 years, since age 18, of 9 people betraying me in a very, very hurtful way. And I had to process it. You see, sometimes we think we can ignore what we feel or bottle it up, but eventually those emotions will come up. And it is understanding that you cannot have the goal to not feel, because you never will. That is not what life has intended for you. Life is to be felt, because you need to feel fear before you feel freedom. You need to feel disabled before you feel like a superhero. And you all are superheroes in your own way to make the world a better place. You may not meet 21 presidents. You may not speak in front of 800,000 people at a time in person. You may not write a New York Times best-selling book, but it doesn't matter. You are a world changer. But first, you need to have this foundation for yourself to process this emotion. So talking to people is very healthy. If you don't want to talk to anybody, journal. That's a wonderful way to process your emotion, okay? That's step number 3. And when you process that emotion, you have to address those emotions, okay? Number 4 in your life, define in your life obstacles as opportunities. This is what I had to do. When the crap hits the fan so bad, not only can you be thankful for what you have, but this is something I challenge you to do right now. If you're depressed, you can do 3 things. Not only write down the 10 things that you're thankful for, but also seeing obstacles as opportunity, in learning from the past, understanding that you don't just go through life, you grow through life. Us entrepreneurs are okay if we lose all of our money once or twice. I've lost it twice, and the money came back. Money comes and goes. Money doesn't define who you are. Your job doesn't define who you are. Your value as a human being has nothing to do with how many people like you on Facebook or some social media. Has nothing to do with anything. I couldn't care less what my 14 million social media fans think of me, but I care about what my wife thinks of me. I care about what my children think of me. I care about doing my best as an employee. I care about more about what I am thought about from my employees. I have 17 employees, 4 different businesses and organizations. I care about that more than anything. And even though we lost $750,000 in a span of 12 months, when something stops, something else opens. When you look at obstacles as opportunity, because you're not defined by your circumstance. So in that depression, also write down the 5 last bad days of your life. And think for a second. It could have gone even worse. Now that might be offensive. My dad died in 2017. That was a bad day. What could have been worse? That I never got to say goodbye. I nearly died in a Californian hospital in 2016. What could have been worse? That I died. 2020 was so bad, and I was hijacked by my emotions. It was rough. You know what could have been worse? That my wife then gave up on me because I was not me. But she didn't give up on me. And today I have a wife who loves me, who cares for me, that I can't hold her hand, but I can hold her heart. And I hold hers, knowing that some days Nick ain't Nick. And my children understand daddy ain't daddy sometimes. We all go through this, guys. We're human beings. But we must fight for our family. We must fight for our faith, our family, our friends. And this is the core 3-legged stool of everyone's life. Whatever your belief system is, a belief system that there's no religion, that's your belief system. But faith is a part of us to understand what we believe, that either there is a God or there is not a God, a family, that community, the friends that love you for you, who will never leave you by your side. But in self-efficacy, if you are not your own friend, you will never find another. You need to write a list of the things that you're thankful for, the bad days that could have gone worse, talk to somebody, and then go do something for somebody else. These are 3 things you could do to get out of depression. And when you look at your last obstacles in your life, I challenge you to think about it for a second. Where were you? What happened? What did you learn? I think you could easily say, I learned about 3 things from that bad day, or that struggle, or that obstacle. I can tell you right now, as a motivational speaker today, as a life coach, that if you actually spend a half an hour today or tomorrow to think about the last 3 big days of your life that were bad, you've actually learned double life lessons. You see, when you go through yuck, you can easily get stuck in the yuck. So as soon as you're out of the yuck, you want to get out of there. Go back there in your brain and learn what's lessons 4, 5, 6 that you learned from that. And if you got 3 bad days that you learned lessons 4, 5, 6, now you've actually learned double life lessons from the same experiences without having to go through it again. That actually might be the experience and life lessons you need right now. In you, there is more wisdom than you think. You just got to give yourself a chance. Reflect, learn, grow through these things. Don't just go through life. Grow through life. When I started my speaking career, how did that happen? Well, attitude of gratitude happened at 13 years old. Self-efficacy happened at 13 years old. I processed my emotions for 2 years, between ages 13 and 15. I found my faith at age 15. 2 years later, at 17 years old, the janitor at my high school, who was cleaning the toilets, looked at me and he said, Nick, you're going to be a worldwide speaker. I said, Arnold, you're a crazy old man. He said, may you please allow me to arrange your first speech here? I said, absolutely not. I said, I have nothing to share. He said, you have a story. I said, I don't have a story. He said, yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. And for 3 months, he asked me to actually do the speech. And I said, no. I finally said yes. I got in front of these 5 students my colleagues, and I was so nervous. My palms were sweaty, my knees were shaking. You know, the greatest fear in the world is public speaking. The second greatest fear is death. So some people would rather die before they become a public speaker. I was the same. And so I got up in front of these students and I started seeing them cry. And they then asked me for my number and hugs. And they would hug and they would cry on my shoulder. And they said, finally, someone understands me. And I'm thinking, I don't understand how it is to have my mom and dad separated. They don't know how it is to have no arms, no legs. But we all know those emotions. Fear, isolation. And so brokenness is something we all can relate to. But you don't know what beautiful things can come from your broken pieces until you give your broken pieces a chance. If you want a further inspiration, I was in a short film that will inspire you. It's on YouTube. It's called The Butterfly Circus. It's all about redemption. And so I was redeemed by some person who told me, you're going to be a speaker. And then someone who hugged me and said, thank you. No one's ever told me that they love me. No one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am. And that's when I knew I was born to be a speaker. And sure, I'd be entrepreneurial in doing what I do and make $180 in 5 minutes on the stock market every day as a day trader for 3 months, killing it on the stock market, made money in investments, did my double degree in accounting and financial planning. But little did I know that I'd become a speaker and love what I do and be paid for it really well. I want you to know that I love you and dreams can come true. I'm so thankful that I was able to change and reframe obstacles into opportunities. You see, when you look at an obstacle, do you know what the normal human being does? They do not pursue a dream after 3 barriers of entry. I'm not going to start a business because I need money. I'm not going to start a business because I have no marketing. I'm not going to start a business because I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't stop there. I went to 7. And I saw marketing not as a disability, but an opportunity to learn as I started my speaking career. If I didn't have money, I used someone else's money. I took from someone in Holland, descent, actually, who live in Australia, beautiful people. I asked them for $300,000 cash at 10% per annum to start all these things, and they believed in me. And I did it. And that's what happened. And so when you realize that obstacles are opportunities, it's incredible. And you can dream big, and you can fly again. And so understanding that you'll have ups and downs. You know, everyone looks at me and says, Nick, you're so resilient. Do you want to know why? Because I've been through a lot. I know what I'm capable of conquering. Same with you. And so when you face these fears, when you face these obstacles, when you face these challenges, know that this is the only way to develop your character, to put in your memory bank what you have resiliently overcome. You are an overcomer. You are here today. You may be in a temporary position of being hijacked by your emotions, but you're not defined by even your emotions. You will get through this. Do not give up. Do not ever, ever give up. And dream big. That's the next point I want to make to you. Apart from obstacles is opportunities. Dream big. Dream very, very, very big. You see, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, aim your goals and dreams for the heavens, so if they miss, they're still up there with the stars. For me, I would not be where I'm at unless I dreamt above Tony Robbins. Does that make sense? You want to be a tech guy? Don't say, I want to be like Steve Jobs. No, you want to be better than Steve Jobs. You want to exceed Elon Musk. That's where you got to set it at. Why limit yourself? Because in 20 years, Elon Musk is going to be just as famous as someone 20 years ago. Do you understand? If you want to be the one who's known as the Elon Musk in 20 years, you need to supersede and exceed his success. And the only way to do it is to actually go for that. So we must understand that in innovation, that in entrepreneurship, that in all of these things, it's very, very important to dream big. Last thing, I'm going to say two more things. The importance of setting your goal. Short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. You know, when a ship sinks and you're on a life raft and you paddle, 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 and there's no landmarks, you can paddle all day long and not know how much you are really progressing. So the importance of short-term goals to bring up an instigation of self-efficacy, actually, and gratitude, and all of these things together. There is nothing more powerful to do for yourself than to write out the 10 short-term goals you're going to do in the next 40 days. Write it out. Every day, think about which goal I'm going to move the needle on. And when you accomplish it, you get the satisfaction of crossing that off your list. The reason is it's because it's a success mark. It's like a landmark, success mark. And so you can actually give yourself a little bit of patting of the back to say, look, I did it. It's small, but I did it. And when you have no legs and you're walking on the sand along the beach, to get to the water, you can't take any bigger steps than you can. I have to take quadruple the amount of steps to get to the beach, to the shore. And I can complain, I can pout, and I don't have to do it. But if I want to do it, I take one step at a time. To encourage myself to make 400 steps, I look back and see my steps that I've made. Midterm goals, long-term goals. Remember, your value as a human being and self-efficacy has nothing to do with what long-term goal you actually achieve. So you're not defined, again, by money or your job or what university your children go to. It is all about you understanding that there is not another you. You're irreplaceable, and you're here for a greater purpose. And in that midterm, long-term thing, I actually put a long-term goal to make a difference in an orphan's life. So what I did was, while I was going through hell through my life as a teenager, some years, I put a photo of a smiling African orphan on my mirror. So no matter what I was going to face that day, as I'm checking my pimples, checking my hair, how good I look to go to school, I looked at that orphan smiling, and I told myself, no matter what hell I have to go through today, I'm a day closer to helping an orphan. Not only did we give away $1.7 million to the poor and needy, but me and my wife, we have 4 biological children. We sponsored 13 children, and we're about to start an orphanage in Mexico next year. You have to have that long-term goal that so goes deep in your soul that no matter what happens that day, you're not moved. Lastly, it is the perfection of time management. Time is your greatest asset. If you had 30 seconds to breathe, when was the last time you hugged somebody that you needed to hug? Who didn't you say sorry to that you know you need to say sorry to? Who did you need to thank that you weren't able to thank? You got 20 seconds to breathe. It's interesting how quickly we forget that time is everything. And all of a sudden, when you only now have 10 seconds to breathe, all your goals go out the window. And what's left is what you're left behind. How many people will miss you and cry at your funeral? How many people have you changed? How many people did you listen to? What difference did you make by who you are? Because at my dad's funeral at 63, we didn't talk about his achievements. We talked about who he was. You don't know why? Because who he was mattered way more. It's not about what you achieved. It's what you changed in the world, who you changed in the world. It gets very lonely at the top. It's easy. I made 133% on the stock market in 22 weeks, cashed out. Exponential compound interest at 10 to $15% returns compounded 6 months, up to 30%. I made 30% last week on one stock. It's great. Who cares? I have my faith, my friends, and my family. I have a roof over my head. I have food. I have water. Okay. I'm looking after my fitness. I'm looking after my finance. And I gotta make sure I have fun along the way. Make sure you try to enjoy along the way. And with that, I was able to, in 2018, I had 4 companies, 17 employees, and I was able to turn off my phone every week for 6 months. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, my phone was off. When you sharpen the perfection of delegation and prioritization and time management, and you are a leader, you can do 14 things 3 days a week. You can. I did it. So if I can do it, you can. I have no arms, no legs. You have arms and legs. So have fun. Take time. Think through everything I've told you. And be blessed. I want to say thank you so much for having me here. Boss, it's incredible to be with you live streaming as we can now engage with the Q&A session now through the chat.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's a blessing to have you here at Nyenrode Business University. So let's have some fun, let's have some time. Let's start easily. As they say in Australia, good day, how are you going?
Thank you.
I hope you had your brekkie already, because it's early in the morning for you. You're fine?
I don't eat breakfast, actually.
Okay.
But I have my coffee.
You have your coffee. Perfect. So first say hello and hi to everyone attending this lecture. And it's great to have you here. We even got attendance from Australia, from Perth, as I know. So everybody, a warm welcome. And again, Nick, it's an honor to have you here in my room. I think I've known you already my whole life, at least the last 10 years, because I took you everywhere in my own lectures as a symbol, as a metaphor for optimism. And you know already, because we spoke before, also for the metaphor, the personal resource source, self-efficacy, you named it a lot of times. So there is a lot to say, but maybe it's nice to name 2 persons that are important. One is so important for you, one is so important for me, and that's your late father, Boris, as I recall, because of the subject and the aspect of being thankful. And my mentor here in the Netherlands was a late colleague of ours, Professor Paul de Blot, whose subject was being thankful. So maybe good to name both here in the lecture room in Holland. So please be welcomed here in the Netherlands. And I'd like to speak also about your mom, as I read, called Dushka. She is a nurse, was a nurse in Melbourne. So maybe let's go back to Melbourne in the early 80s. How was it to grow up over there, being without arms, without legs, and without limits?
Yeah, look, my parents, it took about 4 months for my parents to grieve, to go through different emotional things like we've talked about. My mom took 4 months. My dad processed his emotions quicker. But in the end, what was really amazing was 1988. I was about to go to the mainstream school system, and my mom found out that the government did not allow me to go to the mainstream school system, but to actually be segregated. And she brought me as a case to trailblaze integration into the country back then for the very first time, which then put me on national television, and I got Young Citizen of the Year as a little child. And so my mom's courage is amazing. And the resilience that they had to give me every opportunity was second to none. And so very glad that the state of Victoria was the leading state in Australia to do the integration of special needs children in school, which gave me the ability to survive. And with that nurturing, as I shared, to go from surviving to thriving, it was just refueling that and having those healthy mindsets along the way.
Yeah, perfect. And quite an answer. So I made so many notes in the last 60 minutes, so it's impossible to address all of them. We've got some chats, some questions over here in this lecture room I would like to ask yourself. One of the main aspects I use in my lectures is having the perfect storm and setting this perfect storm element into a growth accelerator. How was that time period for you? So you told all kind of deep inside stories within your personal lives, even a suicide try. When did you realize, now I have to change my mindset, now I have to change and reach out for my purpose, my goals in life?
You know, it was really being pushed into that first speaking engagement opportunity at age 17, where I realized that when you look at someone in their eyes, it's the windows to their soul. And so when I saw these students that I was speaking to, and I had no idea what I was going to share, but yet they're crying, there was almost like a light that became present in their eyes. And it's almost as if they saw hope for the very first time. And it was just incredible for me, looking back at when I was 10 attempting suicide, to believe that hope wasn't for me. And now here I am, only 7 years later, talking about how hope can be given to anyone who receives truth, the truth of their value, the truth of their full potential, the truth of their purpose in life. It really touched me that even though you don't get a miracle, you can still be one.
Yeah, perfect. So one of the main competencies of leaders and even professionals, I recall, is introspection. And you use that a lot, I think, in your personal lives. When did you realize that you had to use introspection to change your life?
Tell me a little bit, describe to me that word. Sorry, I'm not familiar with that word.
So it's, for some, it's the same as self-reflection, to realize what your thoughts are, what your self-esteem is all about. So taking the time to think about yourself, your feelings, your personal values. When did it happen for you? And was the perfect storm at stake at that moment?
Okay, wonderful question. I fell in love with a girl when I was 19, and we had a connection. And we were both young, and we waited. Not that we waited, I waited for her, and I told her I'd wait for her, and I waited for 4.5 years. And we reconnected. But then I wasn't good enough for a family. And so it was hard. and she had to choose her family or me, and she chose her family. And that was many, 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 many years ago. That was hard. It took me to a very deep level of reflection to my core. And so that was probably the very first time that happened to me on that level.
Yeah, what a story, and thank for your openness and vulnerability. So life is all about paradoxes, to my opinion. So being brave and being vulnerable, the two paradoxes of leadership.
Yeah.
So there are so many things I noted from your stories. So to my opinion, you used the Kubler-Ross grief cycle a lot. So facing a big incident in life, facing your last year. So I thought I had a crazy year, but professionally. But when I hear your story, it's all about nothing. Even grenades at your door, didn't happen to me. So how can you cope with those big incidents and not stay in this phase of grief and anger, phase of fear, but going to the phase of acceptance and even by negotiating, getting to a new level of reaching your goals? How did you use that one?
You know, I have to give all my credit to God with my faith. I mentioned that I'm a Christian. In my prayer, in my reading of the Bible, I know that I need Him. And so it's really my faith. And then number two is my wife, who was always there for me. Then the community of the friends and the family around us. We knew that we were always surrounded by love and prayers and encouragement as best as we can. And sometimes they didn't even know how to encourage us. But, you know, as you journey on, I feel very thankful for the love that I have around me. And we've actually come to a point, I can publicly tell you this, a major bank kicked me out here in America. There's a lot of cancel culture happening here, a lot. And there are, unfortunately, political things that are happening here where we are needing to choose a side. Very bold. We are being forced to choose. And segregation and division is happening in America. Very scary levels. And all the news out there, don't believe a lot of it. But I'll tell you this. When a bank kicks you out, what do? Obstacles equals opportunity. So we're starting our own bank. We have just started talking about it 2 weeks ago. And in 18 months, the doors of our bank will be open here in America. It'll be a national bank. I have many friends that actually got kicked out of banks, also without reason and cause. And so we are getting ready for quite a different America. And we are worried, but we're bold. And so we have a network of some people who think the same way and are getting ready the same way for the financial industry revolution. I'm not talking about crypto. I'm talking about a revolution that's happening in America that I can't publicly tell you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So having self-esteem and believe in yourself, we need a social system for that one. And for me especially, we need female leadership to have aspects as gratefulness, a vision, a purpose in life. A lot of people ask, starting like you in life, without any legs, without arms, you reached almost everything. We heard your story. What are your new goals in life? So what is your higher goal in the next, say, 10 years?
Yeah, I'm starting a TV talk show, a media company, and a network. So that's the two startups. We've got the bank, it's called Pro-Life Bank, and then it's the media company. And with that, what I believe we can do, because it's a for-giving bank, it's not a for-profit bank. We're giving away half net profits away to organizations that we want to give to. And so it's a for-giving bank. The idea is to actually start a school of entrepreneurship where in the DNA of every entrepreneur, we help them be mentored and surrounded to be forgiving entrepreneurs. And the idea is, I've written out 106 different ways in how the human being can suffer. And I have relationships with 21 governments today, current governments. And what we want to do is steward in 10 years from now, you can mark my words, that's the bold goal that we have, 400 million people giving $1 a day. With no corruption in the middle, no bureaucracy, no blah, blah, blah. And there are 2 billion people out there who are hungry pre-COVID. About 50 million sex slaves in the world today. I've met 650. There is chaos in many places. And with infrastructure, reverse engineering, ways that we can make the world a better place, you need money. You can't do anything without money. And so what we want to have is this ongoing cash machine of $2.8 billion a week to alleviate the suffering of humankind. So that's my goal, I feel, from the Lord to achieve within 10 years from today.
Perfect, and that's a great answer. We have to wrap it up, so I just want to summarize a couple of things I noted from your story. So how to reach your goals is all about humbleness, about kindness, and sometimes being lonely. It's all about the female style of leadership and setting your goals, for me, on 3 levels. So your KPIs, make the step tomorrow, and another step another day, and never break the chain of setting your goals and reaching for your goals. The higher goal, you just mentioned a perfect higher goal in 10 years, and it's all about purpose-driven leadership. Attitude is gratitude. I love that quote. Mine is talent is good, character is everything. Nick Vujicic, I want to thank you so much for being here today with us. I've got some chicken skin because you are my hero. And thank you so much for today, and thank you attendants at home, and back to Chris. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nick and Bas. And Nick, thank you for sharing your great insights and your special story. And for you at home, what are you taking away out of this session? How can you make the world a better place from the place where you are? Today, tomorrow, the people that are valuable to you. For now, thank you very much for joining the Nyenrode Inspiration Talks. And we hope to see you next year at the new session in 2022, maybe live at Nyenrode here or in an online session. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.